Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ahead at the Apex, episode 4. I am your host, Josh, and I am once again joined, but not really joined, by Tim. Say hi, Tim.
Everyone from the other side of the country.
One day I'm going to catch you out and you're actually going to say hi, Tim, back, but today is not that day. So, so Tim's not here. He's not physically in the room with me, which feels weird. I came into this room all by myself without you. I'm sitting here talking to myself.
The
wall. But it means I get to sit by the window, which is nice for once. So Tim's remote, so there's going to be probably a lot less interrupting each other because obviously we're talking over Zoom. Zoom has a delay, so I'm probably not going to interrupt Tim as much, and Tim's not going to interrupt me as much, and we'll try and throw to each other rather than behave like amateurs and interrupt each other all the time. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree. And I think in a way this might be, or we might have unlocked a better format in terms of how we do this. So
what you're saying is I now need a podcast studio in my bedroom. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
As we all do.
And then we can do this all the time. Okay, so today we are going to talk probably a lot. There's quite a bit.
Yeah, we've got another dense one. I think there's been a few races. We had one Grand Prix, one MotoGP, and one WEC, so one of each.
Yep.
And also a lot of gossip coming out of F1 in drips and drabs. So plenty to sink our teeth into.
Absolutely. And we just want to emphasize before we start that we are in no way geared up to be a reactive podcast. We tend to let a story build, come to a conclusion, and then kind of comment on the facts rather than speculate. I think that fits us as people a little bit better. But we cannot ignore basically what's happened in the last week that happened off track. And with that in mind, I'm going to throw over to Tim in News Corner. Tim, what is the news this week?
Wow, plenty. The first one we'll tackle the world of MotoGP. Jorge Martin has decided to break his Aprilia contract after just the first 6 races. Of course, actually only racing in one of them.
Yeah, which is wild, right? To have raced one race, coming back after several injuries, break some ribs, and then go, you know what? I'm out. See you later. I've kind of had enough of this. I'm looking at everybody else's performance and decided it's not for me, kind of thing. I mean, I don't know how shocking the Aprilia bike has to be for the world champion who's not raced it really at all to say no. I have heard speculation this is about perhaps the 2027 regulations, and maybe he's looking at a bigger factory that could give him a better bike when the new regs come in. Honda is the name that's being thrown around a lot. But who knows? I saw actually this morning, which I didn't have time to talk to you about, which is Pecco Bagnaia is rumored to be going to Yamaha.
Wow, big move.
Yeah, and Pedro Acosta to Honda. So Acosta and Martin to Honda, factory Honda, and Bagnaia to factory Yamaha, which I don't know who would leave factory Yamaha. But yeah.
But we're not going to speculate. We're not
going to speculate, but we cannot ignore that the current reigning world champion has come out of hospital and said, you guys have 6 more races to show me that you can do something here. Otherwise, I'm out.
Yeah. I think it just shows and reinforces once again the dominance in the Ducati package and how little confidence that he has in being able to compete with it.
Yeah, but give it 12 months and everything's going to be on its head. We're going into a completely new regulation change, and probably the biggest manufacturer will win out there, which will be Yamaha. They have the most money. They're currently building 4 MotoGP bikes that are all different to each other and just throwing them at Quartararo to see which one works. I mean, Ducati can't do that. Aprilia, KTM. KTM nearly went bust at the start of the season. Still not sure if they'll make it to the end. So, yeah, it's weird. Anyway, we're going to let this one develop, and then I'm sure we'll discuss back. What else has been going on, Tim?
So F1 has once again reared its silly season head. So the big news was that Oliver Oakes, the now former Alpine team principal, has resigned after 1 year in the role. This at first looked as if it were to be almost directly in response to the driver change, where Doohan was replaced by Colapinto. But a few days after, it came to the fact that his brother was facing some rather ugly criminal charges in Dubai, I think, linking to his business partners, some Russians, dealing with his F2, F3 teams in high-tech racing. So what became what felt like just another Alpine infight turned into something rather more serious. And, of course, the real winner out of all of this is Flavio, who seems to now be back, which was on no one's bingo card.
No, absolutely not. I remember him walking into the paddock last year, and everybody sort of the hype around Flavio coming back. For those who don't know why that's a big deal, let me rewind the clock a little bit, if I can get my words out. So Flavio is old school Formula One boss, and not without scandal, I think is the right way to describe it. But he was given a lifetime ban from the sport in 2009 for the Crashgate scandal, and appealed it in 2010, won, and just decided that he wasn't interested in the turbo hybrid era of Formula One. Went off to do whatever it is he's been doing for the last decade, and then came back last year. He's got huge ties with Renault, the car company, and their motorsport division just said, "Yeah, please come back and fix this sinking ship." And it took him a year, but here he is at the top, and who knows what will happen at Alpine. I did see as well yesterday, the high-tech cars were confiscated. So this
assets
drama,
have been seized.
Yeah, this drama is not over, I'm sure. And the Oaks Corporation.
No, and again, another one that we'll definitely attack in due course. But I think now is a perfect opportunity for you, Josh, to explain what the hell's going on this ahead at the apex.com site.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to know about the rise of Flavio Briatore to the top of the Alpine Tower, you can head over to aheadattheapex.com. There you can find lots of articles, many of which we will discuss on the podcast as well. So the podcast will be more commenting on the news, whereas the website will be the news. And that's the way that we will go forward. So yeah, head to aheadattheapex.com to find out about everything going on at Alpine, plus the Williams story that we will discuss in this podcast. It's all up there. I'm going to round out the news with, actually, I'm not going to round out the news. I'm going to continue the news with Christian Horner rumors because it wouldn't be the modern day Formula One without good Christian Horner rumor. And rumor has it he's out at the end of this very weekend that we are about to go into. And I don't know if you saw, but Red Bull are joined by Sebastian Vettel this week at Imola. And it has been rumored that he will be joining Red Bull as ahead of the driver academy, which would be Helmut Marko's place. And everybody is kind of wondering whether he will just take over. And I would like to see him take over. I think that would be a good move.
Well, and this obviously comes following Helmut Marko himself talking about how, in his eyes, Sebastian Vettel would be an ideal replacement and would serve in his role as a mentorship figure perfectly. So it seems that has more weight to it than was portrayed when it was initially discussed. And now Horner seeming to step away, which I think was almost initiated and ignited by Oliver Oakes now being available, of course, rather closely tied to the Red Bull program. It all seems to be falling into a place, but that would be a seismic change to the sport. Obviously, Horner being there since Red Bull's conception.
Yeah, so they've never had anything else. They don't know anything else. I'm surprised it's happening now, honestly, given everything that happened last year. Surprised that that's...
I know. Which makes me think, not that I want to get into it, that this might be more led by him as opposed to externally people.
Yeah, if it was going to be Red Bull pushing him out, then that would have happened last year, surely.
Exactly.
So this, yeah. But then, where's he going to go? Is he going to go join Jonathan Wheatley at Audi, like everybody else seems to be doing? Who knows?
Yeah, that Audi team is really looking at the ship of Theseus right now.
Okay, enough speculation about Christian Horner. We're not supposed to do that in the UK. Finally, I want to talk about Franz Herrmann. You know who Franz Herrmann is?
Well, he's this new upcoming driver that's making a few waves.
Absolutely. So I think this is perhaps the best news story to come out this week. Is just 1 week after the Miami Grand Prix, 1 week after the birth of his first child, Max Verstappen goes to the Nürburgring to race a Ferrari branded in Red Bull colours and his own website on the side of it, wearing some Red Bull overalls, his unsponsored helmet, but going under the name of Franz Herrmann. Why? Why hide it, right? Everything says Verstappen on it. Your helmet is I can buy a Lego version of your helmet. Why are you trying to hide yourself? And apparently he just turned up, set a new lap record, and then disappeared. That was it, right? So he's trying to qualify for the 24 hours of Nürburgring, if I'm not mistaken. And to do that, he has to do so many laps in the classification of car for which he wants to race. And I believe that car is the one he competes in his sim racing endurance races. So it all ties together. But why go under this name Franz Herrmann? And where does that name even come from? Like, how did he come up with that name? Who knows?
Yeah. But I think it's a really interesting story. Obviously, the absurdity of it aside, Verstappen has always been very vocal about his interest in other racing series and that he doesn't ever see himself spending a really long career in F1 specifically. Is this the start of that transition? And as you say, now that the kids come along, does he want to move to a series with a less intense calendar like WEC, as we know? Is it just he's going to feel what's out there? It's interesting. And as we preface this section by saying, I'm sure this story will grow. And it will be interesting to see what he comments about it, because everything that he has said has been more in response to, why have you done this? Is this a joke? What are you up to? I think in a few weeks, probably following Imola this weekend, it will come out that, or it will start to be treated in or taken in a more serious light.
Yeah. And
it will be interesting to see how he reacts to that coverage.
I'd be interested to see what Red Bull looks like without Newey, Horner, Verstappen, Marco, any of them. Just decimate the team entirely.
It's really, the speculation of the implosion of Red Bull has obviously now been a year and a half, but it feels as if now we're really in this transition.
Yeah. And I have to get the joke in with Max.
Yeah, it was a brilliant joke.
With Max transitioning to WEC and or endurance racing and showing that he has this in interdisciplinary interest, maybe he's just a big ahead at the Apex fan, right?
We need to get him on. This is the time. Strike while the iron's hot.
Exactly. We're Max, I'm speaking to you. We are multidisciplinary. You are multidisciplinary. Come on this podcast and let's have a chat. How about that?
I think we need to teach him how to be more multidisciplinary, because he's only jumped into one.
Yeah, and he's stuck to 4 wheels, so we need to get him on a bike. Absolutely great.
speaking of endurance racing, I think that is the perfect segue into WEC. We had another race, two in relatively quick succession, considering there's only 8 or so in the season. But everyone was in Imola over the first weekend in May, the 8th to the 10th, which was the third race of the season. Ferrari come into this on really great form, having won both of the first two and qualifying pole on both. The interesting story in the lead up to this one is that Pascal Wehrlein, which is the defending Formula E champion, was initially meant to make his debut later on in the season, but was jumped up. So he was in the number 5 Porsche for that race. So an exciting new face to join the circuit, already joining a fleet of rather successful drivers from other series.
Yeah.
So, as I said, Ferrari on a charge, and their qualifying success continues.
Absolutely.
So the number 50 took pole on the Saturday. Second was another Ferrari, Robert Kubica's 83. Mm-hmm. And finally, the number 51, who was the winner back in Imola, which is the last race, came in third, or qualified in third. So it was a Ferrari 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and that's been the trend between those three. That order typically seems to be the case. The 50 is typically the faster of the three. Kubica likes to slide it in there in second, and then Gio's car typically comes in on third, and that's been the way since Le Mans last year almost. I mean, they've just been dominating hyperpole.
Yeah, week in, week out. But it looked, again, Ferrari is sitting pretty. Do you know who really is not sitting pretty is Porsche.
Yeah, it's been a tough week for them.
It's been a tough season for them.
Yeah, how the mighty have fallen.
I know. Well, they are, of course, the defending champions as of now. And them, along with the Aston Martins and the Toyotas, failed to make it all the way through qualifying. So Porsche struggles very much continuing, even with their new flashy driver. And actually, start of the race, their luck goes from bad to worse, as the number 5 car took an early spin and was almost race over from then on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I've ever appreciated just how clean a Formula One race is until I watched the start of the Belgian Grand, the 6 hours of Spa. And within 15 minutes, they were lapping the LMGT3 cars. And it was just chaos. There was three hypercars side by side down the Kemmel Straight with 2 Aston Martin GT3 cars in the way, and Kevin Magnussen taking to the grass, and all sorts of just chaos. And then 15 minutes later, the same thing happens when they catch them back up, because the GT3 cars haven't spread out enough that they can just file on through. And the field was so close that even towards the end of the race, the same things were happening, and like the podium was decided almost by traffic, and it's just chaotic. And I expected Spa to be an easier track than Imola, but it wasn't the case at all, because the slipstream is so powerful and these cars have such low top speed that they just stick together for the entire race just by sticking in each other's slipstream, which is just wild to see. So yeah, very exciting opening and continued into the race.
Well, my favorite moment was about 20 minutes in when we had about 7 cars. There was a 7-way battle for 5th.
Yeah.
And which consisted of both the BMWs, or 2 BMWs, 2 Peugeots, a Cadillac, an Alpine, and a Porsche.
Yeah.
All in this dense clump. Slowly progressing to the chicane at the end of the first, or in the middle of the first sort of side. Epic.
I don't think I've ever.
And these guys are scrapping. It's not clean. They're fighting. It's not everyone sat there in a nice line as we get used to in DRS trains, for example, in F1. This is you're 4-3 wide down this straight. Epic.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard the phrase, and Paul di Resta gets the best drive, off the top of Radeon ever. And I used to watch him compete every week in Formula One. I don't think I've ever heard a commentator scream, "And here comes Paul di Resta."
Yeah, and it is just nuts. The more I look into and spend time engaging with this series, the crazier it seems to get and the more exciting it seems to get. You alluded to some of the insane overtakes on the LMGT3s this week, which I think of all of them thus far this season have been the most insane. There was one moment where one of the BMWs just overtakes one of them completely on the grass.
Yeah, that was K-Mag,
no wheels on track. K-Mag's just cutting the grass. saw Lando's moves and thought, let me give that one a go.
And somehow managed to pull it off. I mean, how did he do that and not just career into the side of 5 other cars who all happen to be around him and create the biggest accident we've ever seen?
And the hypercar that he was in the battle with was stuck behind those 2 GT3s. They couldn't get through. So K-Mag's overtake suddenly was a brilliant move because he was able to go make progress and his opponent was blocked. Just mental. And absolutely mental.
They used the GT3 cars as sort of blockades, right? The hypercars know that they can do this. I think it was Schumacher and De Vries towards the end. And they were behind a VSC or a full course yellow. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but they're both essentially the same sort of thing. Reduced speed, and Mick gets a really slow restart, and De Vries sort of jumps him. Like Schumacher just pushes him onto the green bit of curb outside of is it No Name? No.
The final corner before the long straight.
The final corner before the last chicane. It's that sort of long left-hander that we've seen many a Formula One brave overtake around. And then they come onto the back straight and there's just traffic in the way, and Schumacher just uses the traffic to stop De Vries coming through. And it wasn't the only one we saw, but like they just use them as these rolling blockades of like, absolutely not, you're not coming through here. There's a GT3 car in the way. Good luck.
Yeah, the other one was there were three of the hypercars were overtaking almost into Eau Rouge or just out of Eau Rouge, and they get to a point where there are 3 of them just drag racing down the end, and eventually the one that wins out just threads the needle. As a Peugeot, just absolutely threaded the needle between the 2 of them.
Yeah,
and gets into the chicane first. Just awesome. If no one has seen it, go and watch the highlights of this race. It was wild.
Yeah, but please don't do what I did on the Sunday and watch the 20-minute one. Stick to the hour one, because I watched that, actually earlier today to refresh my memory. And oh my God, the hour-long version is so... Because you get to see those full battles develop and you get a bit more commentary and... good. Really, 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 really great sport.
Well, you alluded to one of the safety car moment, which was caused by the 95 LMGT3 McLaren, who crashed, or was sort of crashed out, which led to a rather controversial moment in the pit lane.
Yes.
Between the 2 Ferraris. So the number 50 Ferrari was ahead of the number 51 Ferrari and seemingly let the 51 car through, which was a great reminder that the pit lane is limited. It's a speed limit, but you are under no circumstances required to go at that speed. So weird to see, but nonetheless an interesting moment. And it was all to organize their strategy so that they could come out and organize their final stops, which worked out brilliantly in their favor and allowed them eventually to take the top 2 spots. But as I said, so the number 51, second victory in a row, third victory ever, 2 of which have come in the last 2 races, and the number 50 is in second. But excitingly, Ferrari also won in the LMGT3 race, and the top 4,
what is going on?
They have... As soon as you look away from F1, being a Ferrari fan is quite fun. But they win in the LMGT3. They win in the LMGT3, and the top four is a Ferrari Ford. Of course, a rather historical rivalry when it comes to endurance racing, which is always fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what staggers me about that is when you look at the Ford car that they use to compete with, it's just a tricked out Mustang. It doesn't scream endurance racing. It screams drag racing. And you have this sort of properly aerodynamically shaped, proper racing car of a Ferrari winning the race, followed by this great big slab of American muscle car coming in second, which just always staggers me to see. And not just that they compete, but that they're quick, because you don't expect that from a big American muscle car. So really true rivalries and great to see. Yeah, just I am sort of smitten with WEC. I'll be honest. It's
an awesome championship, and this year feels even more exciting. I think that more people are starting to look toward it as a series, which is really great to see. But it is, when you look at it on paper, Ferrari dominance may begin to bore fans.
Right.
Which is something I've never thought.
I have never thought, oh God,
recently.
When will Ferrari stop winning? God, I wish they would stop winning. Yeah, I have never said that once.
But they leave Spa with nearly double the points of Toyota in second in the manufacturers' championship. So Ferrari are on 136 points and Toyota are in 71.
Yeah, wow.
It's comfortable, which is nuts. But the really exciting part is we look now ahead to the big one.
Yep.
The 24 Hours of Le Mans, next race on the calendar, 11th to the 15th of June. And of course, that gets even crazier because you've just got so many extra cars, extra teams that enter because it's Le Mans.
Yeah, you have that whole extra category that turn up, plus the wildcard garage, plus other teams tend to field another car if they can get away with it, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's chaotic for sure. And
we've discussed it, and in order to provide proper context to this race, which is quite legendary, along with the other two in what's known as the Triple Crown, we're going to record a few mini bonus episodes which will slot in and around those races, just to give a bit more context about the history of the race, why certain things might be a bit different. So Le Mans will actually be the third one that we do, with Monaco and the Indy 500 all happening in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
But look out for those if you're interested in a bit more of a historical look at these races, as opposed to just a review of what's gone on.
Yeah, they'll be more focused. I'm not sure if they'll end up being shorter because we probably waffle for just as long, but they will be more focused rather than this multidisciplinary stuff that we tend to focus on. They will just be, here's a nice history and why this race is important, and why this race matters, and why nerds like us get excited when they come around on the calendar, right, Tim?
Definitely. So yeah, get it in your calendar, 11th to the 15th. That's the next big one. And keep an eye out for our bonus episodes.
Okay, from one legendary French Grand Prix to another legendary French Grand Prix, in fact, at the same circuit. So if you weren't watching the World Endurance Championship this weekend, why weren't you watching the MotoGP World Championship this weekend? Because my goodness, was that historical. So it was awesome. No, I mean, nobody can say otherwise. It was an awesome race. I've heard people say, oh, well, flag-to-flag racing is always really boring. It's not. It was great. No, there wasn't this titanic battle between Bagnaia and Marquez for the win, but I couldn't not watch. I couldn't take my eyes off for a minute because every 2 or 3 minutes another rider was in the gravel, and you just had this heart-wrenching feeling that it was going to be Zarco who was leading the race at the time, and that it was all going to be over, the dream was going to be gone, but it wasn't. And it was just incredible from start to finish, and nobody can tell me otherwise. So let me explain. It was raining in Le Mans for the feature race. The sprint race was dry, boring. Marquez won. Let's get over it, right? He put it on pole. He won the sprint race. That's 6 sprint races in a row. It's 7 he's ever won in all history, and it's a new record. Blah, blah. Who cares, right? The feature race is what we want to talk about. It was raining, and I don't know if you know, but the Le Mans circuit is right next to an airfield, an airport. So the radar should be pretty good there. And I believe the teams have the ability to read the radar from the airport, because why would you install another radar at the circuit when there's one that already exists? But everybody and their dog thought, you know what, this is a good idea. I'm going to go out on dry tires. So they come in, and they all come in at the end of the warm-up lap, which causes a red flag. They reduce the race distance by a lap. Everybody comes back out, goes back to the grid, and they set off on another warm-up lap, because now they're on new tires. It's been a good 5-10 minutes. Some riders came out on wet tires. Some riders came out on dry tires. Some riders decided at the end of that second warm-up lap that they were going to come in again for whichever they weren't on. Really hard to keep track of who was who. Then they come out of the pits again, and they're all given double long laps, because now it's a warm-up lap, not a formation lap. So they can do that. That's the difference between this and what happened in Austin. Yeah. So they all reform in their normal grid spots, and now we've got a mixed grid of some people on the wet tires, some people on medium wet tires, some people on soft rear wet tires, and some people on dry tires and dry bikes. And what happened at the start was absolutely the fault of this new regulation where they're allowed to do this, where we had bikes on wet tires and dry tires going into the same corner at different speeds. I think it was Mir who collided with Bagnaia, or Bagnaia who collided with Mir. The result was that Bagnaia was basically dropped off his bike at turn 3. Nearly took out Zarco. What if, right?
Oh, I know. It was so close. When you look at the replay, you just, in the hindsight of how the race developed, you just think, my God, that was so close to never happening.
Never have happened. And how he stayed on that bike and didn't get any damage is beyond me, because, he's just completely piled into the side of, as 2 bikes are going down right next to him. The result was that Zarco was 17th at the end of the first lap, because the track was pretty dry. So if you were on dry tires at the start of the race, you were in it to win it, right? You were pulling away. But it didn't take long before the rain came back, and everybody wanted to be on wet tires. So once everybody had served their double long lap penalties, it started to rain, and just keeping track of who'd served a long lap penalty or not was difficult enough, especially when there is no MotoGP. If you're listening, we need a graphic that's like 1 long lap penalty and 2 long lap penalties, and then just knock one off when they've served it, please, because the little yellow long lap penalty loop thing is not good enough for 2 long lap penalties. Okay, so everybody comes in for wet tires. Only Jack Miller and Johan Zarco were on wet tires, and far enough ahead of everybody else to potentially stand a chance of winning. But Miller went down. We never actually saw how Miller went down. I have no idea, but all of a sudden it just flicked to him walking down the pit lane, and I was like, well, that's over then. I guess that's over. Then Quartararo goes down. So
that was the first real shock, I think.
The French hope. I mean, he was hyped up so much. He got pole position. The record attendance French crowd was there to see him. He is, from what I hear, not typically French. And I don't know why that matters, because he seemed to be being pretty much cheered on the whole time. So anyway, What was interesting about that is he hit a marshal in frustration, and he will receive shortened practice time and a fine and maybe a grid penalty, I think I read somewhere, for the next race, and quite rightly so. And then it was really, the Marquez brothers and Aldeguer leading the race on dry tyres, shock, and then Zarco. And once the Ducatis had pitted for wet tyres, Zarco was 8.5 seconds in the lead, and you're looking at it going, okay, maybe this develops into a fight. But it never did, because Zarco just pulled away. I heard over the commentary that the soft wet tire, rear tire, had about 2 or 3 laps of where it was like peak performance, and then it was just flat performance for the rest of that stint. So all Zarco had to do was make sure that every time Mark went past his pit board, the same time was being shown to him, just break his spirit, and then be like, right, now I'm just going to stay in it. And Marquez kind of went into this, championship mindset of, I just need to get points here because everybody's going down. And
let's serve the longer, bigger goal.
Yeah, and off Zarco went, and eventually he won by over 20 seconds. And
he really just head down and just pulled as big a gap as he possibly could, and in the end, semi-showboating, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think you could tell he felt good. He knew this was his. He knew he'd done the right thing. He made the right call, and from then it just became, okay, I'm going to just get over the line. Yeah. And wow, did he do it with confidence.
If they had team radio, it would be, all right, I think you can slow down now. There's no need to push every lap. The classic
I'm not pushing.
Sebastian Vettel radio, right, of when he was dominating the sport. Just like, okay, Sebastian, I think that's enough now, kind of thing, but for Zarco, obviously. Yeah, and actually, winning as a French rider in France hasn't happened in 71 years. So very historical, very overwhelming emotion-wise. He even broke protocol and ran out of Parc Fermé and went to do a backflip in front of the crowd, and his parents were there, and every just the whole thing just felt really, I don't know, so it brings a tear to your eye, right?
In a really lovely way.
Pushing Zarco aside for a second, not to diminish his achievements. What else happened, Tim?
Well, Alex went down.
Twice.
As well. Yes. The first time seemed like an error. He bit too much curb and the bike kicked out. But the second time felt really, or looked really strange. It's as if it just kind of buckled underneath him for whatever reason. I assume it was the damage sustained to his aero, and the whole thing was off balance, and it went. So he ended up retiring, which harms his championship. And as you were saying earlier about Mark settling into that mindset of, let's just get over the line, recover the points that are very valuable in second, that's where you feel Alex lost this time, was not having that and maybe taking a bit too much of a risk.
Yeah, and that's experience, right? That's Mark exactly. Has been here before. Even a few weeks ago when he crashed at Austin, it isn't always about winning every single race. Sometimes it is about, this race isn't worth me pushing, because if I push, I may come home with a 0. If I don't push, maybe I come home with 20 points. And that's exactly what he's done. And Alex has thrown away the lead in the championship this weekend by taking risks. But his teammate, Aldeguer, he got his first podium.
Yeah,
he just pipped Pedro Acosta in the either last lap or the penultimate lap. Shame for Acosta. I know things have been hard at KTM lately, so getting a podium would have been quite nice. But can't have it all, I'm afraid. What is interesting is the sort of record books were supposed to be rewritten this weekend.
Yes,
Ducati was supposed to take their 23rd victory in a row as a manufacturer, which would put them one ahead of Honda. And Zarco on a Honda breaks that record, or breaks the streak. Yeah.
Keeps them at 22.
Yeah, if I were a conspiracy man, I'd say something fishy was going on there, but never mind. I'm not. So pretty impressive. This is the first time a Honda has won since 2023 at the Circuit of the Americas. So it's been a while. And Ducati are just going to have to start again. They've got 20 odd races between now and the end of this regulation, so crack on.
Yes, yeah. Are they going to get back to that fateful number? I mean, that would be unbelievable if they went on a 22 race win streak, lose one, and then go on a 20 odd win streak. It's reminiscent of Verstappen when he lost in Singapore to Sainz and had to rebuild his ludicrous win streak.
Yeah, didn't he win 10 in a row and then win 8 in a row, and it would have been 19?
Yeah, and there was one break in the middle or something. But as you said, Mark now takes his place at the top of the championship. He's sat on 171 points. Alex, who of course scored none, remains on 149. Pecco in third, 120.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say scored none. He scored in the sprint.
In the sprint. But in the feature race, he scored none.
Pecco did score none all weekend. Yeah. And this is... The French Grand Prix has been a bit of a bogey track for Bagnaia recently. But this is definitely his worst weekend in a very long time. I mean, crashed in the sprint. Didn't do too hot in qualifying. It went down at the very first opportunity, braking zone, and then lapped, pitted 3 times for different tires. Did he take a penalty? Yeah, he must have done. Must have taken a penalty, and just shocking, to be honest.
The other incredible points distribution is in the constructors or the manufacturers, where Ducati are sat on 217 points, and Honda, who's in second, are on 85.
Yeah, so they jumped KTM this weekend with Zarco's win, but that just goes to show you that when you've got 6 bikes finishing in the top 6 every week, that the rest of the field can't ever hope to keep up. Right? There's not a chance. No. So Lenovo Ducati, they are currently in the lead with 291, Gresini with 197, and VR46 with 159. And Zarco's win takes LCR Honda up to 6th place with 72. So, that just goes to show you that these teams, so Honda, Yamaha, KTM, they are one big result away from massive positional changes. And that is just Ducati's
the midfield, of course, is everyone. Ironically,
yeah. The midfield is absolutely everybody. Ducati are just so far ahead. Speaking of Ducati, let's move on to our next MotoGP topic. Tim, would you like to introduce it? Yeah,
I think, in short, let's not beat around the bush. What is going on with Pecco? As you alluded to, one of his poorest weekends for a very long time, definitely in recent memory. Of course, finishing runner-up last year in the championship only by a mere 10 points, which ultimately was down to inconsistency in finishing or scoring highly in the races that he wasn't winning.
Yep.
Because he won more races than Martin last year.
Yeah.
So, as we spoke about with Mark's championship mentality, that would have saved him last year. But it seems as though his form coming into this year has just been nowhere's harsh, but not to the level that he would expect or anyone else would expect, having had that great season last year.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just take a look at his record. So he's a double world champion, 2022, 2023. Should have been a triple world champion, as you've just said. Before this season, he had 107 Grand Prix starts, 29 wins. So he knows how to do this. And if you actually look at his race results, it doesn't seem all that bad. But there's this feeling in the paddock that his form is off. So third in Thailand, fourth in Argentina. He obviously won in Kota, second in Qatar, third in Spain, and then 16th in France, which, is a blip. But he's 51 points behind Marc in third place. So why is there this feeling that Bagnaia is out of form? It's mainly in the sprints and in qualifying. So third in Thailand in quali, fourth in Argentina, sixth in Kota, 11th in Qatar, third in Spain, and sixth in France. And in the sprints, we've got a third, eighth, third, and DNF. Again, third is not bad, but when you're getting beaten by Alex Marquez consistently, and not just beaten by the Marquez brothers, but almost embarrassed by the Marquez brothers because they're so far ahead of you, and you're having these big crashes in practice, and you're having these eliminations in practice, so that you have to do Q1, and you have to use an extra set of tires, or in Jerez where he had a huge crash and he had to take caution in Q2 because he only had that one bike, and they couldn't afford to have him crash and miss out on more track time. That's not good for a double world champion. And he himself has come out and said, the bike feels like it's been designed for somebody else and it's not me. And I can't get to grips with the small tank in the sprint. I don't know what we're supposed to do to make this better. And he just seems really down in every interview I've seen with him. And he just doesn't seem like he's riding like the champion we know he is. So
I think it's really reminiscent and similar to Lewis.
Yeah.
Where even though, let's consider back in his Mercedes, or the end of his Mercedes career, his race results were strong. He was always finishing there or thereabouts as to where the car should have been. But his qualifying pace was really off. And that was the thing that went.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think it reopens the debate about, is that your first indicator that you're moving past it? And unfortunately, is this just the start of the end for Pecco?
Yeah, it's a good point. And again, taking that thought of Lewis, I mean, Lewis, a lot of his results in that last few stints at Mercedes, they were artificial, I think is a good way to describe it. And I'm reminded of the early 2022 races where, Red Bull had a couple of shocking DNFs and Ferrari had a couple of shocking DNFs and whatever else. And George and Lewis were there to pick up the points. And, Bagnaia's third in the sprint in Jerez was only third because Quartararo binned it and Alex had a shocker. And his second in Qatar was only because Viñales received that penalty at the end. And there's a couple of these results where I go, yeah, but Alex wasn't there, and Viñales got the penalty, and other riders crashed in front of him, and Marc went down. That's why he won in Kota. And I look at it and I go, yeah, but he didn't win on merit, and he didn't get that podium on merit. He got that podium because he was the only one left on the bike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, as you alluded to earlier, France was a turning point. To come or to leave a weekend pointless was hard. And he was hit. It wasn't as if he made a mistake or he fell off or he crashed. But he also chose not to change tyres.
Yep.
And then did. So
and then went back, and then went back again during the race.
The slip-in strategy, I think, is a lot to blame, and I think and we've seen a lot of instances where when a driver is really in control or feels in control of their machinery, they can make these decisions and they can think on these decisions.
Yeah,
I always think back to the likes of Carlos Sainz in some of his races where his engineers were saying, "Oh, I know, pit for this," and he's just ignores them and says, "No, this is how I feel the car wants to react." Has he also lost that touch where he has that intimacy with the bike and that allows him to make the better decisions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not inconsistency. Indecisiveness is a telltale sign of lack of confidence, right?
Exactly.
If you are decisive about something, you know exactly how that vehicle, whether it's a bike or a car, is going to behave when you make that decision. And yeah, it shows. Mark is absolutely crushing it, right? Pole in the first 4 races. He's only dropped pole twice to Quartararo in Jerez and in France. He's won every single sprint this year, which is a new record. He won in Thailand, Argentina, Qatar. He DNF'd in Kota and Jerez, and he finished second in France. Could have been a victory had things gone differently with Zarco at the beginning of the race. Leading the championship, he's smashing lap records every week. You get this feeling he's inevitable on that Ducati, and no matter what he does, he's going to come back and win the race. He's just taken second place for the number of podium finishes, so he's now one ahead of Lorenzo with 115, and only Rossi is ahead. But considering Mark's done nearly half of the races that Rossi's done, that's not a surprise. It just seems like it's not the bike, it's the rider. We've spoken about this with F1 in the past, and you know, when one bike's winning everything and the other bike isn't, is it the bike or is it the rider? And
if two drivers bad, machinery bad.
Yeah.
One racer good, one racer bad, racer bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder to point blame at the machinery when one person is performing significantly better than the other.
Yeah. So Davide came out and said that, you know, Mark did exactly what we told him to do. He brought it home for second place. He didn't take any risks. He secured the points. Whereas Pecco, he said he has to come back and fight for victory. He has the value to face even Mark, but today his morale is low. It's up to us to help him. So, you know, the team, despite the speculation we mentioned at the top of this podcast, the team are behind him. But yeah, I mean, it's not the time to be lacking performance when, you know, contracts like Pedro Acosta are coming up, and it seems Jorge Martin doesn't know what he's going to be doing soon. So, yeah, you know, Ducati commit to helping Bagnaia, but, you know, if there's other drivers on the market who are going to ride that bike better, then why would they stick with him? You know, they've got Marquez winning everything. They've got a new regulation change coming up. Why they don't have to stick with him?
Is it the start of a new silly season in transfers?
Well, we saw this this year with F1, right? So, you know, a year before the regulations, the silly season really kicks in. Drivers signing multi-year deals to take them into new regs and everything else. So, could happen. Let's move it on.
One man who is far from suffering at the moment is someone who I think is universally loved, and it's great to see them do well, is Mr. James Vowles. Of course, former strategist at Mercedes, deployed over to become the team principal at Williams. And what's become clear through a hectic, crazy, exciting weekend in Miami, as it usually is that Williams have some serious pace in that car. And I'm not talking about the Lego car, which was on a pretty level playing field with everyone else. But I mean, on pace. In the first few races of this season, they have outperformed Ferrari, which, if you were to tell someone a year ago that Sainz is actually getting a team upgrade on pace, everyone would have laughed in your face and called you a liar. So both the drivers performing well, the cars performing well, Albon scoring points in the sprint. Unfortunately, a post-race penalty hindered that. But on the actual Grand Prix, Albon finishes in 5th and Sainz is in 9th. These are valuable points for a team that is competing for best of the rest midfield position in sort of 4th, 5th. So Albon was chuffed. It was easy to say. He was so pleased. I think he said he could see the podium finishes, but he was so excited, saying, I could see Max. And this was the first time he admitted he'd ever really seen Max at the end of a race. Ironically, even back when he was teammates with him, as we discussed in episode 1, and was hardly underperforming, but Max was still that far ahead. So there's a lot of progress and a lot of development that's been made into that car, into that team. And I think a lot of that success can be extrapolated back to James Vowles and the decisions that he's taken and the leadership he's had in taking that team from, let's be honest, underperforming, technologically backward institution. I think there were a lot of things that were not working well, to now a team that is looking ahead to start fighting for podiums, which would be quite an achievement.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It's been a torrid time for them lately. So how did it go so wrong for Williams, I think, is perhaps the big question. So to really understand that point, we have to go back way back to when little Tim was just a little baby, and I was a fully grown adult, obviously, in the mid-2000s, the early 2000s even, to when it was BMW Williams. I mean, do you remember a time when it was BMW Williams?
No, I was 1.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I know I look fondly back to these videos and recordings.
It makes me feel old. I was in secondary school, so yeah. BMW Williams was an iconic team. When I think of Williams, this powerhouse Williams team, rather than what it perhaps has become over the last few years, it's Ralph Schumacher and Montoya for me. I'm sure other people have different memories of Williams. Perhaps the older people remember Mansell and Senna, or even earlier, sort of Rosberg, Keke Rosberg, if you really go back. But for me, it's Schumacher and Montoya. But realistically for BMW, much as it is now in the World Endurance Championship, actually, they were up against Ferrari. And early 2000s Ferrari, unbeatable. I mean, Schumacher and Ferrari at the time were definitely unbeatable. And they came up against, a very strong McLaren and then the rise of Renault under Briatore. So not an easy landscape for them to win. And BMW kind of pointed the finger at Williams and said, it's your fault. You haven't provided the platform for our engine and our technological team to bring it home. So they pulled out, and Williams went through Cosworth and Toyota and Renault engines for the next sort of 8 years. They had a couple of shining moments. I mean, probably the one that you remember is Maldonado winning in Spain, and then catching fire in the garage because they'd forgot to discharge the KERS system, and it overloaded and caught fire because everybody was so happy about winning the race, and they just completely forgot to do any post-race stuff, and the garage burnt down and all sorts. But yeah, I mean, between 2005 and 2013, the downfall really became quite apparent. So again, not necessarily relevant because this is a few regulations ago. And also remember that there were more than 10 constructors in a lot of these seasons. But if we go all the way back, 05, they finished 5th. And then 8th, 4th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 9th, 8th, and 9th in the Constructors' Championship. That last year, Frank steps down from the day-to-day and Claire steps in. It's obviously a family-run team still. She was given the title deputy team principal, but realistically, she was the one there at every race weekend. She was the one running the team, making decisions, that kind of thing. And it coincided the next year with the turbo hybrid era, and of course, a partnership with Mercedes. And I actually watched this highlights the other day of the 2012 victory in Spain. And Toto Wolff is in the garage, and I'd almost forgotten that Toto Wolff worked for Williams, and that's how that partnership became a thing, because he wasn't always at Mercedes. And Ross Brawn stepped down from Mercedes and went off to work in the FIA, and Toto Wolff took the helm, and and the rest is history, as they say. But that fond relationship with Williams meant that Williams got to run that super duper Mercedes engine that everybody wanted in the early turbo hybrid era. And they had the old hand of Massa, who arguably is as experienced as a world champion, and the Mercedes junior of Bottas, little baby Bottas at the time. And they took back-to-back thirds in the constructors, and maybe things are looking good again for Williams. And I remember they had something like the highest top speed, which I think was Bottas in Baku, which is a nice alliteration. And they had a front row lockout in Austria 2015, I think is the right time for that. Massa on pole, which is very impressive. But things got difficult for them. So 2017 brought those big, wide cars that we've come to know and love. And now they're ground effect cars, but they're still the same sort of concept. And as you alluded to earlier, this old-fashioned independent team that didn't have these super high-tech facilities and this super massive budget because they're a little independent team and they're having to buy components from manufacturers and whatever else, they don't have the ability to build these aerodynamic cars. As soon as those aero regs came in, Williams struggled, and that really became apparent. Massa dropped out eventually. Bottas got the call up to Mercedes. Claire scrambled to make ends meet financially for the team, so she took on Lance Stroll, who was the second youngest driver to ever compete in a race. Fun fact. At the time, and obviously he brought with him some Stroll money. She took on Sergei Sorokin, who was a pay driver. They took on Robert Kubica, and I'm not saying he was a pay driver, but he did bring with him some oil money. And they took on Nicholas Latifi. We all know how that went. But the performance just wasn't there. And, if we go back to the turbo hybrid era, up to sort of Claire's departure in 2020, Williams were 3rd, 5th, 10th, 10th, and 10th, which at the time was last in the constructors. So pretty dire situation. Tim, would you like to continue?
Yeah, so 2020, as you say, is this 3rd season in a row that they come last. And Claire realizes this is the time to move on, and they bring in some money, some proper money, with some capital firms, Darlington Capital, who came in and wanted to run things like a modern team, which is what they needed. Ultimately, as you say, the demands of what it took to perform at the level was significantly higher than it had ever been. The cars are becoming more complex. You need more engineers. You need more research teams working on the individual components. It became a money game, and it was not an immediate success. they had some restructuring technically and wanted to improve, pretty much everything. But the relationship with Jost, who was the guy that came in when this transition happened, was not someone there for the long term.
No, he was a band-aid. And I have to correct you. I promised I wouldn't interrupt. Doralton Capital. And,
sorry, Doralton.
That's okay. And I don't know what you were talking about. Not an instant success. I mean, George Russell came second at the 2021 Belgian Grand Prix.
Oh, of course.
Let's not forget that, right?
That was a brilliant qualifying lap. But
absolutely. But you're right. I mean, Jost wasn't there for the long run. He was really just an intermediary, because 2023 comes along and Daddy Vowles, James with his sweet, sweet voice. I mean, he could lead me into battle and I'd probably follow, right?
Yes.
There's something about the way some public speakers are just born to lead, and James Vowles is one of those people. 22 years of experience, as you mentioned earlier, with Honda, Braun, and Mercedes. So he's worked with, just to top this off, Jacques Villeneuve, Jenson Button, Michael Schumacher, Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton, all of the big champions of the last 2 decades.
Yeah, he's a connected man.
He's a connected man.
And was sort of then, I always felt deployed by Toto as a man in training for either if Toto ever wanted to move on and James to come and step in at Mercedes. But he, having worked with all of those people, understanding how to adapt and transition between regulations, between team members, between drivers, came with a real sense of direction and was very focused on the 26 changes, which he still is, and trying to instill a new culture that would allow Williams to return toward the front of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he recognized straight away, look, I've got basically this. He joined so late in 23. I mean, late, just before preseason. He's not going to have an effect on the 23 car. So he's got 2 years in which he can have an impact. Realistically, is he going to pull that team back from last to win a championship in 2 years? No. So let's set our sights on 26. Let's do something about 26. Let's get the team right first. So as you said there, his aim is to change the culture and to invest in the infrastructure there. So I still get chills when I hear his interview where he says, this is your opportunity to break everything, push the team, break everything you can. As long as we learn, that's fine. Break it. Show me where it failed, try things, be creative, be adventurous. I don't care if we double DNF a race because we tried a crazy strategy. Make sure we don't do that again,
Yeah.
Thing. Leaps, not steps. So, make significant technological leaps, even if it means that, in the long run, we still finish last. It doesn't matter. We need the big changes to come in and the rest will follow. So yeah, obviously this doesn't happen without money, as Aston Martin have shown. You can't just change the infrastructure of a Formula One team without some serious backing. And to do that, he's maintained this relationship with Doralton Capital. He's brought in Atlassian, who are not just a huge investment partner, but also a technical and strategic partners. So, they can help turn around the mindset of Williams. And I think we're already seeing that. And he brought in Science, which was a huge signing last year, who is a proven race winner. He's experienced not just the Ferrari family, but the McLaren family, the Red Bull family, the Renault family. So he has a wealth of experience behind him, and it's really starting to show, as you mentioned. So since 21, we've had an 8th, a 10th, 7th, 6th, and they are currently 5th in the Constructors' Championship, which is steady progression. Even though...
Which you don't see that consistency in progress very commonly in any sport.
No.
At all. Without some serious change in an approach and that approach being improved.
Yeah.
I always think back to the moment where they implemented the screen on the steering wheel, which of course Williams were the last team to adopt and were weirdly resistant to doing that. And Vowles came in and said, why
are we doing it this way? Yeah.
It's not, there's no reason that it's better. Just do it properly. It sounds harsh, but in a way, that is what you need to do at this point to compete.
Yeah.
So that video is lovely. Everyone's so excited that it's got a screen on the wheel. It's so funny.
Yeah, so that level of consistency and improvement, even though his goal is for 26 to have this level of rise in just his first 2 years is pretty crazy. So season so far to somehow be 5th. So obviously Melbourne, not great. Sainz had a crash. Easy mistake to make, still learning lots of things. Albon 5th in the race. Albon 9th in China. Sainz continues to struggle, but that's fine. Albon 9th in Japan. More struggles for Sainz in qualifying and difficult to overtake. Sainz DNF in Bahrain. Albon out of the points. Race was chaotic at best. Double points in Saudi Arabia with impressive teamwork to keep Hadjar behind. I remember that one very well. The pace was there in the sprint in Miami. Albon received a post-race penalty, which was weird. But double points in Miami. And as you say, Albon P5 and able to see the podium. And, they are faster than Ferrari on pace. And nobody thought that, that would be a promotion for Sainz. So kind of wild. And now Vowles is talking about podiums. They released an Instagram video at the start of the week saying, how do we go from here to podiums? And I'm still very confused because I thought this was about 26.
Yes, exactly. I think the goal is to pick up a scrappy podium because of an Oscar Lando Max 3-way collision, and you get an Albon sneaking in P3. But I think this is a focus on 26. I think they've demonstrated that what they're doing is working. And I imagine sooner rather than later, they will start transitioning fully to the development of next year's package. I think they will be one of the first to do that. Those that are already looking that way, the guys at the back of the grid, your Saubers, your Hasses, your Alpines-ish. But I think in terms of the first competitive team or looking to be competitive team, they will be the ones to move.
Yeah. So it's not just Williams who are having a great season. Oscar Piastri and drivers like that are having a great season too. But something I don't think anybody expected was that the replacement for 7-time world champion and basically Mr. Mercedes himself, Sir Mercedes himself, would have quite an impressive rookie season. So I am, of course, talking about Kimi Antonelli, or Andrea Kimi Antonelli, if I'm going to use his Sunday name, who, much like Hamilton, actually, has started his F1 career at a top team. Obviously, Mercedes aren't the top team. McLaren kind of were in 2007. But nonetheless, a lot of pressure on a rookie's shoulders. he's had a very impressive junior career, so this doesn't come as quite a surprise. His karting career was constant victories. His F4 and F2 careers, because he skipped F3, were marked with race wins. I saw somewhere that his F4 career was compared to Senna, Hakkinen, and Verstappen's F4 careers, which is quite the list to be in. And, you know, I keep coming back to, he started racing in the dawn of the turbo hybrid era. He is just a child. I mean, he's 18 years old and 203 days when he started the Australian Grand Prix. But he was in Formula 4 cars when we had Abu Dhabi 2021, and he was actually in one of the support races for that Grand Prix weekend as what must have been a 16-year-old Kimi Antonelli. And he's now racing Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen on a regular basis.
Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, yeah, as I just said, he arrived in F1 at 18 years and 203 days old, which makes him the third youngest Formula 1 driver, which is how I knew about the Lance Stroll stat. There's my secret given away. So obviously it's Max, then Lance, then Kimi. Nobody will ever beat that because Max was 17 when he first competed in a Formula 1 race, and they've changed the rules since. God, where do we begin? I mean, Australia was crazy for 6 rookies to be on the grid. The rain, the safety cars, people dropping out left, right, and centre. 4 rookies DNF'd. Even Alonso and Sainz DNF'd. But Antonelli finished, and he finished well. He was in 4th behind George. And this marks the highest finishing debutant since Kevin Magnussen, who finished on the podium in 2014 after replacing Lewis Hamilton. No, I'm stand corrected. After replacing Sergio Perez at McLaren alongside Jenson Button, who, of course, had replaced Lewis Hamilton departing. Interestingly, his F2 teammate Ollie Behrman was the only other rookie to finish, but did finish at the back of the grid because Haas made a horrendous strategy call at the end of that race to pit for Inters whilst under the safety car rather than when the safety car came out, which meant that they were at the back and then further behind when the safety car was sent back into the pits. It just all went wrong. China, 7th in the sprint, 6th in the race. Again, the highest rookie. Again, finished behind his teammate. Okay, there was a bit of a gap, but he was promoted thanks to the double DSQ. But, you know, you've got to be there to win it, and you've got to be in the points to score points, and fair play. He got a 6th. Japan, he got 6th in qualifying and finished 6th in the race. I mean, they did try something, Mercedes. They were the only team to try anything at the Japanese Grand Prix. So he became the youngest to set a fastest lap and to lead a race because Mercedes tried something, but ultimately finished right behind George in 6th, marked his 3rd top 6th appearance, and that has only been equaled by Sir Jackie Stewart and Sir Lewis Hamilton. So again, great.
So
company.
He's going to be knighted somehow soon.
Somehow.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. So somehow, I mean, okay, Lewis's record, again, a little bit more impressive because of how McLaren were when he joined. So Lewis managed top 6 appearances in his first 9 races, one of which included a race victory. And Jackie Stewart managed it in the first 6 races. So 6 consecutive top 6s. But different eras, different cars, a lot less competitive up and down the grid. And then we go on to Bahrain. This was a Mercedes problem. They pitted him just before the safety car came out, and then again under the safety car, which meant he did an extra stop than everybody and ended up out of the points. But in Saudi, came back with a 6th place, and again finished behind George, and again was the highest placed rookie. And one might think that would have meant 5 back-to-back top 6 finishes had they got it right in Bahrain, but they didn't. And then, Tim,
yes,
we arrive in Miami.
And then we come to Miami, which was, even though he had such brilliant results up to that point, no one was really looking at him as someone that could really dominate the sport in the coming years. But it was, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, his performance at Miami that really began to demonstrate that ability. And Mercedes came to Miami with pace. They looked to be very strong, even though George was not there really at all. So is this a Mercedes thing or is this a Kimi thing?
Who knows?
But Kimi took the sprint pole.
Out of nowhere, it was very impressive.
Complete shock. And Brundle described it as really just the lap with the fewest mistakes, which when you think you've got Piastri, Max, Charles, all of whom are, and Lando actually, all of whom are ruthless and very accomplished qualifiers.
Yep.
The fact that this 18-year-old kid shows up and outperforms them is quite phenomenal. But in the race, unfortunately, it started off with a bit of bad luck. He had a bad start, was pushed out by Piastri. It is in the sprint race.
Yeah.
Which he was upset with. I think it all dropped out to a racing incident. But unfortunately, that pushed him further down the grid and was then in an altercation with Max in the pit lane, which forced him to, which essentially gave him a drive-through penalty because he was unable to stop in his pit box and had to go back round and come back in for a second time. So he did get points because of penalties that we mentioned previously with, for example, Albon.
Yeah.
But he then comes back into qualifying. That, of course, was on the Saturday morning. He comes back into qualifying for the Grand Prix Saturday afternoon and then puts it on the second row. He's in P3, so is not at all upset or affected by that poorer performance, which took crazy resilience, and is behind Norris and Verstappen, the two obviously championship competitors from last season, and both of whom are really up at the top of the championship this year.
Yeah.
So again, unfortunate VSCs and racing situation dropped him back down the grid, but he was still ahead of the Ferraris, was the highest placed rookie as always, and without Bahrain, you can really see him matching Jackie Stewart's top 6 from 6.
Absolutely, and you know, resilience is a good word to use there because we look at some of the other rookies. You know, Lawson had his setback at Red Bull and he hasn't looked the same since. Doohan had an incident in quali. He got all aggressive with the team, maybe a bit desperate in the race on the Sunday. Took a dive up the inside of Lawson. DNF, didn't even finish the lap. And I saw somewhere that, you know, that means that the last full racing lap he ever completed was in that Lego car and he wasn't even driving it. You know, we've seen a fiery Max and a fiery Lewis as well in their rookie seasons, and to not only not run over your entire team when you get pitted at the rear wheel in a wet pit lane on old tires, to have that, you know, mindset of, you know, quick reactions. And I'm not gonna come into the pits here. I need to avoid Max. To not get, I mean, he got vocal, but not to not get vicious or desperate in the next session, to come back and be like, right, you know, fresh head. I'm not going to take any stupid moves here. I'm just going to do what I did yesterday, and I'm going to, you know, turn it up again, put it in third, you know, out qualifying his teammate, out qualifying another McLaren, out qualifying the Ferraris. Great. And then he had a good race. It was just unlucky again. And you know, sometimes, was it Max last year in Miami said sometimes it works out for you, sometimes it doesn't. That's racing. That's what it is. You can't control these things. They happen randomly. It's exceptional. I have no other words to describe Kimi's rookie season. And I sound like such a fanboy, and I'm really not a Mercedes fanboy, but wow, Kimi, you are swinging me. It's it's impressive to watch.
I will admit that after his Imola test,
Monza test.
Monza test. I've got Imola on my mind because it's coming up. But from his Monza test last year, when he decided to do a qualifying lap in practice and threw it into the wall, I will admit to thinking, is this guy really as next level and next generational as everyone speaks about him as? And especially after the rise and dominance of Max, people or teams, I think, were so wary of letting that chance slip again.
Yeah.
We didn't sign him. And were Mercedes trying to will that into existence and saying, if we get Kimi now, we're saving, or we're saving ourselves from making that mistake again?
Yeah.
And I came into this season thinking, let's see. By no means did I have my mind made up, but my initial thought was, okay, he's going to be good, but he's not going to set the world on fire. And holy crap, he set the world on fire.
You're right. And the way you say about generational talent since Max Verstappen, I mean, if we actually look at teams that have said we have the next Max, there was the whole Mick Schumacher thing with Ferrari. Maybe he'll live up to what his dad was. McLaren said the same thing about Lando. That has gone well. Alpine said the same thing about Oscar, and then he immediately left the team. Red Bull themselves said Yuki Tsunoda is going to be the next Max Verstappen, and he hasn't been. Yeah, maybe Mercedes are right. Maybe Kimi is the one.
In which case, the Bottas Kimi replacement saga was will in hindsight look like a very easy decision.
Yeah. And even just signing Bottas to be a reserve driver in case Kimi messes up, what's Valtteri going to do now? Where's he going to go? But believe Max is leaving or don't believe Max is leaving. Would George go to Red Bull? Maybe.
Well, there were those conversations about the driver swap, but as we said at the beginning, we don't speculate. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But all the success to Kimi. Of course, he goes into this weekend, his first home Grand Prix.
Yep, a track he knows well.
Interesting to see how he performs. And that we didn't mention it before. He had never driven in Miami.
Yeah, he's never driven
all
in Miami.
of that
because F2 don't race
track
in Miami, right? It's just the Formula Academy and Formula One. That's it. They don't bring the F2 cars to the States.
And Toto said, "We're coming to the European leg now. Kimi knows these places. He knows these tracks. It's going to be special."
And when we get to the end of the season, and it's the Middle East segment of the calendar, he knows that too from his time racing in the Middle East Formula 4 series. So there's only really the South America area that he's less familiar with because F2 only race in Brazil and Mexico. So yeah, it's an impressive time to be shining bright at tracks where you don't know or you haven't raced before. I think that's you're right. That's the most impressive thing about Miami it was tricky conditions and a track he's never raced before. And he sticks it on pole, sticks it on third, has a good race, unlucky with some things, gets over it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be exciting to see where does he end up this year. And does he Does he end up beating one of the Red Bulls, the Ferraris? If he ends up finishing a season in that way, because of course Ferrari are bringing upgrades and they're still focusing on this package, it's going to be interesting to see.
Why?
From that onward.
The inner Ferrari fan in me saw that announcement today that we're bringing significant upgrades to it. Why? Just give up. It's next year. Focus on next year now. But anyway, we're going to call it there. We've talked for a long time. My goodness, an hour and a half at least, with 6 different segments about 3 different sports and a whole new news segment and everything. Plugging the website ahead at theapex.com, where you can find all of these articles and much more. Any last words, Tim, that you'd like to get across before I cut you off?
Yes, we've had another comment about timestamps, so we'll be sure to put those in the description, which wouldn't be helpful to know now, assuming you got to the end. But my biggest takeaway: if you guys don't watch WEC, go and watch WEC, because it is phenomenal.
So, other than Tim telling you that the timestamps will exist at the end of the podcast so that you can go back and re-listen to the bits that you care about, I want to end by saying that it is the triple header coming up, the European triple header, our second one of the season in only this 7th race. We only have another triple header at the end of the season. We have Imola, Monaco, and Spain. So these are, if I'm led to believe Formula One's Twitter circle, these are the last races with the flexi rear wings. And then it could all change.
Then is it going to be a Brawn again where...
Brawn again? Oh, yes. There's the podcast title.
They have a big they have a big lead going into the middle of the year and do everything they possibly can to stop that leaking.
Yeah, we will see. We thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Hey.